Oh, by the way, let's finish this up to the front of it. The two's out front, the end of the third's out in front, and the fourth root of three. Yeah, that's really real. So they said that's kind of hard to get our head wrapped around. So what can we do with it? You're gonna love this. It's your old friend. It starts with F. It ends with fraction. I can take anything like this and I can write it, my exponent, as a fraction. The number inside goes on top. The number on the outside goes on the bottom. Can you reduce that fraction? What is 12 over 4? And isn't that the exact same thing I got here? Who'd have thought fractions could make it less work? So if it was the fourth root of x to the 20th, what would it be? 20 over 4.
Is this only for fourth roots? Or
No, you can do it with third roots too. You can do it with square roots. You can do it with any root. Let's go back here for a minute. The square root of n to the 12th as a fraction would look like what? Inside number on the top. What's the outside number in a square root? No. 2. That's why we call it square root. We just don't, we're too lazy to write it in. And this would be, what's 12 over 2? The same as if we took half. And if it was the third root of n to the 12th is really handy for this. It would be 12 over 3. So if you can write it this way, could you write it back the other way? Like, for example, if they, I don't like those negatives. Let's find one that's not negative. Right, let's just make something up. Okay, let's take one of those down there. Let's take, I don't know, 70, well, 77. Let's start there without the negative sign. Because I don't want to put the negative. If you had that, they gave you 8 to the 1/3 power. Anybody know what that is? Could you write it back in radical form? Maybe that'll help. 8. The top number is inside. The bottom number is outside. Does that look a little more familiar to you? What's the cube root of 8? Pick another one there. How about 75? The 16 to the 1/4 power. Let's rewrite it back as a radical. The top number goes inside. Bottom number outside. 16 to the 1/4 power is the same thing as the fourth root of 16, which is, happens to be 2 again. we pick small numbers. What about that 79, 78? What is that? 216 to the what power? 1/3? You write it as a radical if it helps. Back to what I was saying earlier. 80% of math is rewriting it in a way that looks more familiar. This would be top number is inside, bottom number is outside. What's the third root of 216? Use your calculator. Not 4. Is 4 times 4 times 4 equal 216? Not this week. 6.
But the negatives could be on the homework.
I don't know.
There's no spot, right?
I don't remember. Excuse me. So, and when they write it as a fraction like this, they call these rational exponents. So what would this be as a rational exponent? I call it a fractional exponent. The fourth root of p to the fifth would become p to the 5/4 power. Forget about the 5 out front. The fourth root of t to the third power would be t to the 3/4 power. So you can do this jumping back and forth for whatever makes it less work for you.
Would the answers just be negative then for the negative one?
Yep, because, like for example, this one, when it was in the negative form, what's the exponent effect?
The number.
What's immediately to the left, which is only the number. This is like saying -1 times this. So yes, whatever that was going to be, this ended up being 6, right? This is why I left it off, because they're just messing with you. There's nothing to be learned there. They're just trying to. And if they wanted it to be negative, could it be negative 216? Well, let's find out. How would they have to write this if they wanted the exponent to apply to the negative as well? They'd have to tell you that by putting it inside. Can we do that? Well, let's set it up as a -216 to the. Is this possible? Odd number, we can have a negative, can't we? So everything we did with exponents still applies. Now they're just changing the color of the frosting. We can write it with a radical, or we can write it as a fraction in the exponent. And then everything else we did, what were some of the other things we did with exponents? If you add x to the second times x to the fifth, what could you do with that? Remember those? Yeah, we put the shortcut was to add the exponents, right? Because this is 2 of them and this is 5 of them, so it would be 2 plus 5, which is 7. Well, what if they're fractions instead? X to the 4/3 times x to the 1/3. We can do the same thing. We can add the fractions we can add them, and now we're back to fraction rules. Are the bottoms the same? Can we add the tops in? x to the 5 over 3. And if they said write this in radical notation, what would this look like as a radical? Where's the 5 go? Top number inside, bottom number outside. And if it was dividing, I told you to do what? In my class, we canceled this out, right? The book's going to tell you you could do divide. If multiplying we added, dividing we would subtract. So if they had it in exponent form like this, we can do the same thing. 4 over 3 minus 1 over 3. Can we subtract those? 3 over 3, which is just 1, isn't it? So even though they look weird because they're fractions, we can still handle them like we did earlier. And again, you see why I don't include this on the final exam. This is our last day of class and we're just now getting to it. I don't see a point in putting on a test and then putting it on a final. And that's the case I make to them every year. Because only a third of you at best are going on to 107. You'll see this again there. The rest of you are gonna take math in the real world or business related math. Okay. That was 8.7. Again, part of the optional week 15 homework. I would strongly recommend that if you are going to go on to 107, get some experience with it now. Because the best part is, let's say you hack the hell out of this and you get only 15% on it. We don't use it. It's not going to replace a number that's bigger. Does that make sense? Wouldn't that be just nasty? Oh, well, you chose to do it, so I'm going to replace your 90 with a 15. Oh, that's just dirty. That's just, yeah. That's okay. So let's take 5. If you haven't got signed in, let's do that and get into your groups so we can spend the last time working on the in-class preview. I'm gonna go close my or wash my hands. I will be all right with that.
You wanna go? Yeah.
Yeah. Got to be careful. Hey, for those of you, this is your freshman year, keep your eyes out on the posters because sometimes they bring in animals. Like next week, a lot of de-stress during finals week for de-stressing. A lot of times they have food too. I don't see any food this year. Somebody should complain about it. Okay, anybody got a group going on?